Hey, I want to talk to you today about something that can accelerate your life or absolutely destroy your life. It is the turning point, the deal breaker, the game changer to experiencing your greatest breakthroughs. Let's talk about the advantage today. Hi, I'm Terri Savelle. Thank you so much for watching. You're watching Live Your Dreams. I pray that as you invest in yourself today, you're captivated and you're catapulted to live your dreams. In fact, I want to talk to you today about something that I learned from my dad, Jerry Savelle, who learned from Kenneth Copeland, who learned from Oral Roberts, and I guess he learned from God himself. I really don't know. But this is something that can save you years of struggling to get ahead. It can save tons of money that could be wasted. It can save relationships from being ruined and even reputations from being absolutely destroyed. This gives you what I call the advantage. You know, when others are frustrated, they're struggling, confused, discouraged, compromising their standards, you, on the other hand, can be chosen, set apart, favored, and given preferential treatment. What is it? Well, if you want to guarantee success, of course, attitude is important, vision, goals, motivation, persistence, all of that is so important. But this single attribute has the ability to accelerate or absolutely destroy your life. And you're probably like, okay, Terri, I get it. What is it? Well, it's integrity. And of course, this is not a word that we hear a lot of. Integrity actually means that what we say and what we do, they match. In other words, we're the same in front of people as we are when nobody's looking. Or you could say it's where we follow through with what we say. We keep our commitments, to others, to God, and even to ourselves. Some people have even defined integrity as trust. Well, the thing is, we trust people who demonstrate integrity. It's the trusted leader that people want to follow. It's a trusted brand, that people will actually pay more money for. Well, integrity is not something, of course, that just happens overnight. It's acquired through years and years and years of keeping our word. Well, I love what I heard Stephen Furtick say. He said that what's next is always connected to what's now. In other words, what you're doing right now and how you're doing it is the most important thing about what God will give you next. So what I mean by that is when you honor God by living a life of integrity, you will be prepared for the next level that God has for you. It'll bring the increase you desire, the promotion you're believing for, and the breakthrough that you desperately need. In fact, I love this story I've heard my dad share, and it was about how years ago he was at this ministry conference, and he said he just felt strongly in his heart about making a financial pledge. So as he's sitting there listening to the vision of this other ministry, he said he just wrote out on his paper that he was going to pledge $12,000 that night. Well, he said, I had the money in a tithe account, and I thought as soon as I get home, he said, I fully intended to fill out the check and fulfill my pledge. Well, after he got home, he found out that $12,000 that he was counting on, it had been used on something else while he was out of town. Well, he no longer had the money, but he still made the pledge. So Dad said he decided, well, whenever more money comes in, then I'll send the pledge immediately. Well, he said it seemed like every time he would receive a little extra money to send, something else would happen and it would just consume all of his money. Well, this went on and on and on until finally, he said he just decided to give up on it. He said he even rationalized, you know what, that minister really doesn't need my pledge anyway. Besides, I don't have it to give anymore. Well, the Bible says we reap what we sow. Well, later, Dad said that there came a great need in his ministry. And so he shared his vision with his partners, and they began to pledge towards this project, But, he said, a very small percentage of the pledges actually came in. Well, I think it's so funny how Dad says this. He said, I went to the Lord in prayer, and I just said, God, these people pledged. They said they would send the money in, and they haven't. He said, this is pitiful. He said, God said, what are you fussing about? And Dad said, those people pledged to do something in a certain time frame, and they haven't sent anything. He said, Lord, I can't do what you want me to do without them doing what they said they would do. Then he said he got real spiritual, and he just asked the Lord, he said, Lord, why don't your people obey you? I love that. Well, the Lord said, I'm wondering the same thing about you. He said, I remember a young man who made a pledge of $12,000 at a ministry conference and never fulfilled his pledge. Dad said, that's all I needed to hear. He said he started getting aggressive with his faith. He started believing God for that $12,000 to come in. Well, he said as soon as that money came in, he sent it out immediately before anything else could consume it. Well, I love what Dad says. He said it was absolutely amazing how fast the money came for his project when he determined to keep his word. He said there was a breakthrough in my finances and the favor of God came. Well, just from that story, you can see that integrity opens the door for God's favor and God's blessings on your life like nothing else. I call it giving you the advantage. So I believe your level of integrity has a bigger impact on your life than anything else. Now, the opposite is true. A lack of integrity is your biggest expense. If you don't believe it, look at someone like Tiger Woods. Now, I don't even like bringing up the negative in people, but it's not hidden. Everyone knows that Tiger Woods, he lost millions of dollars in weeks and projected to have lost hundreds of millions by now. Or you remember a few years ago with Penn State. Penn State was projected to have lost $1 billion because of a lack of integrity. Now, I don't know about you, but if you grew up in the 90s and you remember some of these artists that were around, this is Milli Vanilli, and if you've never heard of them, when I was in college, they were the hottest thing. I mean, they're beautiful guys, and they had the best songs out there. Not only did they have the best songs, they actually won a Grammy for Best New Artist. Now think about it. If you're a singer, that is like the epitome of success, is to win a Grammy. Well, these guys won the Grammy in 1990 for the Best New Artist. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the cover was blown. The lead vocals were not even them. It was all fake. The whole thing was a fake. It wasn't even them singing. Well, the Grammy was taken from them. They were humiliated publicly. Everybody was making fun of them on talk shows, the radio. Everyone was making fun of them. Well, the sad thing is, one of the guys actually overdosed on alcohol and pills. It was a horrible, horrible story. But it was just the fact that a lack of integrity, it can destroy your life, or having integrity can accelerate your life. So, how do you practice integrity? Well, there are 3 ways that we practice integrity that leads to our breakthrough. Number 1 is practice integrity with God. Practice integrity with God. And that just means you love what God loves and you hate what God hates. In other words, we just do our best to be above reproach, like the Bible says. And it doesn't mean that you're perfect, because none of us are. But we're just doing our best on purpose. As my dad always says, to shun the appearance of evil. In other words, my dad used to always say, if it looks wrong, if it appears wrong, if it feels wrong, he would say, if it's questionable, just don't do it. And the thing is, you never know who's watching you, right? And like I said before, it doesn't mean that you're perfect. It just means that you're mindful that if this decision doesn't please God, I'm just not going to do it. And that's where you just say, Lord, help me do the right thing, because I can't do it on my own. So we practice integrity with God. The second way is practice integrity with yourself. Did you know that the average person who makes like New Year's goals, New Year's resolutions, doesn't last 3 weeks? So within 3 weeks, we've already given up on this goal we set for ourselves. And when we do that, we trust ourselves less because we don't keep our own commitments. In fact, the statistics say that 93% of New Year's goals are broken. 30% are broken the first week. Think about that. 80% of those who join a gym drop out within 8 weeks. Now, the reason I'm even telling you these kind of statistics and numbers is because when we don't have integrity with ourselves, we don't keep our word with ourselves, it diminishes our own confidence. See, when you don't trust yourself, it lowers your self-esteem. Well, I love what Kenneth Copeland taught my dad in the early years when he was learning the word. He told him, he said, Jerry, if you don't keep your word, even in the small things like showing up on time, he said, then you're going to tend to think that's the way God operates. He said, if you don't develop your own integrity, then you can never develop a trust in God's integrity. Well, see, he began to teach him things like, he said, people tend to think that God is like them. They don't keep their word, so they think God doesn't keep his. So the first lesson in learning how to trust God's integrity is to develop your own. And then he told him this. He said, it's a must if you're going to enjoy a successful life. Well, I was reading this story about a guy named David Horsiger. He said 18 years ago, his mentor began to teach him success, and he said, I want you to make a 90-day commitment. A 90-day commitment to something. He said 90 days changes things. Now in his case, he said for 90 days, I want you to go without complaining. He said don't complain about the weather, the food, how you slept, not one word of complaint out of your mouth. He said it absolutely changed my life. So I want you to think about, what could you do, just one thing consistently over the next 90 days that could change your life? It could be, showing up on time everywhere you go for 90 days. Or it could be drive a clean car for 90 days. Or pray over your goals for 90 days. Speak positive declarations for 90 days. Do something, choose something that you can just say, you know what, I'm going to make this commitment and I'm going to practice integrity with myself. And then the third is practice integrity before others. The thing is, you never know who's watching you and modeling you. In fact, I heard this story about this father who he took his two little boys to go play miniature golf. When he got there, he asked the guy at the counter, he said, how much is it for the three of us? The guy said, well, how old is everybody? And he said, well, I'm in my 30s. But he said, my oldest is 7 years old. The youngest is 3 years old. The guy said, okay, well, it's $3 per person. But if you're under 6 years old, you get in free. So he said, okay, well, the one little boy is 7, and for me, I guess I owe you $6. The guy at the counter said, mister, did you just win the lottery or something? He said, you could have saved yourself $3 if you had told me the older one was 6 years old. He said, I would have never known the difference. The dad said, well, that may be true, but the kids would have known the difference. In other words, that father was modeling integrity before his children, which can affect their lives forever. So it's practicing integrity in those little areas of our life. And let me just say this real quick. Before I actually came up here to tape this broadcast today, I was praying about it this morning. And I just wanted to say this real quick because you can hear a message like this and think, I want that. I want the advantage, but I've made so many mistakes. There's no way I can say, well, I've got a life of integrity. Look at my past. But you look at David in the Bible. David committed adultery. He committed murder. In fact, he said he was so miserable inside. Finally, he came before the Lord. He repented. He asked the Lord to forgive him. And later in life, the Bible actually says that God described David as a man after my own heart. That was after the adultery and the murder. In other words, God can restore your reputation. He can restore your peace in your mind. He can restore years that have been stolen from you, relationships that have been devastated. God is in the restoration business. So when you cry out, you get that restoration, you're going to get the advantage. Watch this, and I'll be right back.
You can prosper and succeed when others struggle and worry because you have an advantage. You can enjoy new opportunities and favor when others are stuck in a rut because you have an advantage. As a thank you for your ministry gift of any amount, Terri would like to send you her vital teaching, The Advantage. You'll discover the benefits and blessings that come from a life of integrity, practical ways to develop this advantage in your life, how success and breakthroughs can be hindered or accelerated, and much more. Don't go another day limited or confused when God has so much more for you. Get the advantage today by calling toll-free 800-795-5597 or visit us at terri.com. And with your ministry donation of any amount, we'll send you this valuable resource as our thank you for your generous support. Call or go online today to get the advantage that brings promotion, rewards, and success.
Hey, so we're talking about the advantage, the single attribute that I believe can bring promotion, reward, and success. I heard someone say that if you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. Well, I believe integrity is what gives us the advantage. And if we ignore some of these practical steps to gain that integrity, we could be missing out on the biggest breakthroughs of our lives. So I like to teach from a very practical point of view, and I want to share with you 3 practical steps that you can apply today to gain the advantage. So, what is integrity again? It's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. It's honoring your word. It's being trustworthy. In other words, what you say and what you do, they match. Well, you know, every next level that God has for us, it demands that we come up higher. So don't feel bad about yourself. Don't feel bad about, well, I haven't lived a lot of integrity in the past. Trust me, there's a lot of things in my life I wish so bad I could just push delete on. I could erase it. I could pretend it didn't happen. But you know what? I love what John Maxwell says. He says it's not where you start, but whether you start. We can start today to apply these practical steps so that we can develop that integrity and gain the advantage. So, you ready for the first one? The first practical step to gain the advantage is number 1, keep your commitment. Keep your commitments. Now, what I mean by that is whether it's going to the gym every morning, whatever it is, practice keeping your commitments with yourself. It could be reading a daily devotional and you said, I'm going to do this every single morning before I head out the door. Then keep your commitment. Could be journaling your time with the Lord. Maybe you've started to understand the importance of practicing hearing God's voice and you think, you know what? I want to hear God's voice more, so I'm going to practice every morning just journaling my time with the Lord. If you said you're going to do it, keep your commitment. It might even be supporting a ministry. A lot of times we sign up to be partners with a ministry, and then we forget. In fact, I've heard statistics where the average partner who thinks they give every month actually gives 9 times out of the year, but we think we're giving 12. Isn't that crazy? Well, even in my life, in order to start practicing integrity with my partnership with ministries, I had to sign up for the auto deduct so that way it goes out every month. It could be taking your grandma to dinner every Thursday. Whatever it is, if you said you're going to do it, keep your commitments. Or going to a Bible study, or maybe a friend, you promised them you'd go to a conference with them, like the icing conference that's coming up, and you told someone, I'm going to go with you. If you said it, practice keeping your commitments. The reason why is because it builds your reputation. It's like Ralph Waldo Emerson said. He said, who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. Well, see, people trust in those who stick with something. And being a person of integrity, it's not a 2-week experiment. It just becomes a lifestyle. I'm sure you know people who every time they say something, they're not reliable, they're not going to back up what they said, you can't count on them. Well, when people get into that rut, that behavior pattern of don't trust what they said they're going to be there, I doubt it. That builds a reputation and it just proves a lack of integrity. So we have to just start practicing integrity by keeping our commitments. So if you say you're going to do something, just back it up with action. Number 2 is be consistent. You need consistency to have integrity. I was listening to this guy. He was talking about integrity and how it means trust. And he said, like McDonald's. This is why we trust McDonald's. We may not even like McDonald's. We may not even crave their smashed up flat hamburgers. The pickle is the same everywhere you go. It's off-centered. It's flat. It doesn't look that great. But here's the thing. It's consistent no matter where you go. In fact, I've had McDonald's in Jerusalem. I've had McDonald's in Paris. I've had McDonald's in Crowley, Texas. And you know what? It's consistent. It tastes the same no matter where you go. Well, it's the same with being a person of integrity. They say if you want to be taken seriously, be consistent. So consistent action brings consistent results. And see, consistency is far greater than rare moments of greatness. Well, practicing integrity or keeping your word, being the same, person in front of people as you are when nobody's looking, the rewards are it brings increase, favor, blessings, promotion. People get promoted in a company when they're consistent. It brings open doors in your life like never before. In fact, I remember one time my dad said, the Lord told him, he said, your integrity will speak louder than your message. Well, when you're consistent, like I said, people trust you. In fact, I wanted to share this story with you that I thought was so interesting. Now, This was about a guy named Ron Chapman, and if you're from the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you grew up, in the same era I did, you would remember the name Ron Chapman. He was the most prominent DJ on the radio back in the 80s and I guess 70s, 80s, maybe the early 90s, I don't remember. But it was pretty interesting how something happened one morning. This was March 31st, 1988. Ron Chapman went on the air at 6 in the morning like usual. Like I said, the most prominent DJ in Dallas. Well, he would spend 4 hours every morning, he'd give cheer and encouragement to the loyal listeners as they faced another day. For 20 years, they depended on him, they trusted him, he cheered them up when they were stuck in traffic, he dared them to dream, when they're just stalled in rush hour. Well, in return, his loyal listeners were faithful to him. His fans didn't dare miss a morning of KVIL, and Ron Chapman had this thing called a chance of a lifetime, and you never knew what he was going to come up with. One year it was a new car a year for life that he gave away, or a weekend trip to London, a camel race in Egypt. I mean, he was always giving away these amazing chances of a lifetime. Well, on March 31st, he did something different. He said, "Send me $20. That's all I want. No promise, no explanations, nothing in return." Now, he knew some of them would do it, but he was shocked when the next morning, 4,000 checks arrived in the mail and another 5,000 checks on Monday. He went on the air Monday afternoon to say, "Don't send any more, that's enough." Well, in spite of his announcement, people kept sending money under the door. I mean, they're begging the janitor to take it. He said it was like this stampede to give away $20 for no reason at all. Here's the thing. There was no worthy cause, no feeding orphans, no relief for victims, but in their hearts, the donors knew, if Ron Chapman asked for the money, I want to be a part of it. In fact, I read where he received 12,156 checks in the mail, equaling $250,000. Well, 240,000, almost $250,000 came in 3 days. I mean, newspapers from all over the world, radio came in, People magazine did a story on him. People were asking him, where did you get this idea, and how dare you ask, and why did people respond? Well, the bottom line is he had demonstrated integrity for 20 years. They could count on him. They trusted him. People support a person who demonstrates integrity. Well, I want you to know you're being watched. But the good news is your Father, in fact, Matthew 6:4 says this, "Your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you in public." So, God honors a person of integrity. My third point, I don't have a lot of time, but it's just to set some higher standards. Here's the thing, you're not like everybody else. God's preparing you for greatness. And one of the ways you can set some higher standards is by who you surround yourself with. That is vitally important to go into the next level. In fact, I've heard people say, your success can be determined in part by who you surround yourself with, but it can also be determined by who you do not surround yourself with. So one of the things you can even ask yourself is, who are you spending the most time with? Do their standards challenge you to come up higher, or do they cause you to compromise your own standards and beliefs? So, Bible says we walk with wise men, we'll be wise. I want you to enjoy this so much. In fact, for your donation of any amount, I want to give you the advantage because I want you to enjoy the life that God has for you. And you can do that when you practice a lifestyle of integrity. When you place value on your commitments, God places value on you. So I really want you to get this teaching on the advantage. That's why we're giving it away for a donation of any amount. And here's the thing, like I said, God is always watching, and He's eagerly waiting to promote a person of integrity. I mean, just imagine everything you set your hands to prospers and succeeds. Why? Because you have integrity. Or imagine doors of favor opening up for you. Why? Because people trust you and your word. They know they can count on you. Or imagine going to sleep with a clear conscience because you're the same in front of people as you are when nobody's looking. Or this, imagine confidence on the outside because you have integrity on the inside. See, God's going to even give you opportunities that you don't even feel qualified for. But because He's been watching you behind the scenes, preparing you for greatness, you're going to have the advantage over the average person. I read where that word integrity actually comes from the word integer. You may remember that word in math class. That means whole. So it means like a person of integrity is whole. Their lives are put together. So when you discover the advantage, when you discover the power of integrity, when others are frustrated, they're struggling, they're confused, they're not getting the promotion, you are going to be chosen, set apart, favored, and given preferential treatment. So I want you to get this because I believe you're going to save years of struggling to get ahead. You're going to save money that could be wasted on poor decisions. You're going to save relationships from being destroyed. And like I said before, God can restore everything that's been stolen from you. When you start practicing a lifestyle of integrity, God will restore the years that were stolen. The benefits are huge. In fact, Psalm 41:12 says this, "As for me, you will uphold me in my integrity, and you set me in your presence forever." That means because of integrity, you have permanent access to the presence of God. In other words, you're going to hear His voice. You're going to have direction for your life. Can you imagine knowing which job to take, where to live, who to marry, which investment to make? That's what happens when we practice a lifestyle of integrity. So it's easy to go online, or you can call the number that's on the screen, and we will send this directly to your house as soon as possible. So take advantage of this. And like I said, if you want results in your life, it's time to gain the advantage now. And I love to close out by saying, don't look at all the years you've lost. Let's look at the years you've got left and start practicing a life of integrity. Why? So you can live your dreams. Thank you so much for watching.
You can prosper and succeed when others struggle and worry because you have an advantage. You can enjoy new opportunities and favor when others are stuck in a rut because you have an advantage. As a thank you for your ministry gift of any amount, Terri would like to send you her vital teaching, The Advantage. You'll discover the benefits and blessings that come from a life of integrity, practical ways to develop this advantage in your life, how success and breakthroughs can be hindered or accelerated, and much more. Don't go another day limited or confused when God has so much more for you. Get the advantage today by calling toll-free 800-795-5597 or visit us at terri.com. And with your ministry donation of any amount, we'll send you this valuable resource as our thank you for your generous support. Call or go online today to get the advantage that brings promotion, rewards, and success.
I think it's one thing to have a plan, to have a dream for your life, but when you discover God's plan, that's the icing on the cake.
This is more than a women's conference. It is a 2-day event that can propel you into your destiny. Start planning now to join Terri Savelle Foy and thousands of inspiring women from around the world at Icing 2017. Don't miss out on this life-changing weekend filled with empowering, purpose-driven worship, teaching, and fellowship. Besides, who doesn't love free cupcakes? We'll see you at Icing 2017, October 13th and 14th at the Will Rogers Coliseum in Fort Worth, Texas. For more information and to register, visit us at terri.com. Don't hesitate. Register today.